Welcome to the community talk of April. This community talk is dedicated to the project Integrated Watershed Management, in which best practices will be shared of working with communities in Ethiopia. We would like to welcome Dr. Fassil and Dr. Seyoum, both from Arba Minch University, and also Roland Jansen from the KU Leuven. So we already tested the presentation beforehand, and we noticed a small delay between switching slides and slides appearing for all the speakers. So you might notice this delay during the presentation, but that's not a bad thing. Consider this as a part of intercontinental experience. Before starting, allow me to make 3 practical announcements, as I always do. So throughout the presentation, you can already share your questions in the chat. We'll make sure to discuss them during the Q&A. During the presentation itself, please mute yourself. But during the Q&A, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself, put your cameras on, and direct your questions to the speakers. And one last thing is that the community talk is being recorded, so we can share it afterwards on our YouTube channel. So be aware that this is being recorded. Voila, so without stealing more time of the speakers, let's dig in, and we hope you enjoy this community talk.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. I will start with an introduction. It's very nice to see you all here. Very welcome. My name is Roland, work for KU Leuven, the international office. It's a real pleasure to welcome you to this community talk. It's about some of the experiences of the IUC program in Arba Minch, Ethiopia, that you see here on the map, Arba Minch being in the south of the country. The city is lying next to 2 big lakes, and this will be important for us, Lake Abaya and Lake Chamo. They are very important for the livelihoods in the region. As you can see a little bit here, well, it's the color that they put on. Lake Abaya is yellow-brown, Lake Chamo still blue. This is also a bit the reality. Lake Abaya is more or less dead due to turbidity caused by sedimentation from the surrounding land. And this is an issue my colleagues later will speak about in more detail, the causes and consequences. But with the IUC, we hope and we strive to save Lake Chamo from this same fate, with all the consequences that this would have for the ecology and the economy. Now, this IUC program, maybe just a word about that for people that are not that familiar with it. These institutional university cooperations are the largest funding programs that VLIGWS has, and they allow partners to work together for more than 10 years. In this case, it's Arba Minch University on the Ethiopian side, and then several Flemish universities coordinated by KU Leuven on the Belgian side. We are now in the 7th year of working together, and it was during a visit in January that I was there and I could witness some of the actions that are being taken and that are based on the research that was done in the first 5 years. And not only the research, but also the many contacts with people from local communities, government actors, schools, etc. And seeing the first small but very positive changes that are starting to take place there, it made me really enthusiastic, and that's when the idea came up to share some of that with you all. Knowing that maybe in many of the projects that we are writing or executing for VLIGWS, this expectation of seeing some kind of impact beyond the university walls is very, very important. So we hope that this can be relevant for you as well. Our 2 speakers of today are Dr. Fassil, who is also the program manager of the IUC program. He is an interdisciplinary researcher with more than 20 years of experience, specializing in aquatic ecology. And Dr. Seyoum, who did the research for his PhD in the first 5 years of the IUC program, working on agroforestry and reforestation. Yeah, both now play a role in Project 6 of the IUC. There's several projects. This one is on ecology and led by Professor Simon Shibru on Ethiopian side and Professor Bart Muis in Belgium. I'm very happy to give the floor to Dr. Fassil now, and I will already put the next slide so that it will arrive at his side right on time for his speech to begin. Okay, the word is for you.
Thank you very
Fassil.
much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Roland. Do you hear me, everybody? Great. Okay. So to give you an introduction here, this is what we are going to talk about. Achamo is not a problem only in Ethiopia or in South Ethiopia, it's a global problem. How we link it, soil and water are, yes, we know it is a vital resource for terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems service depend. However, this unsustainable agriculture, deforestation, and poor management of soil is a big problem, speed up the erosion. You see the slide from there. So unsustainable agriculture, usually deforestation will decrease the infiltration and expose the soil for erosion. And then the big problem is the topsoil holding the nutrient, and even extra organic fertilizer can be washed out, and the productivity will increase. And the sad problem is that it will also finally, when it joins to the river or the stream, it is becoming a pollution in the lake. So this valuable resource, soil, is not simply a renewable resource because it takes 1,000 years to create 1 centimeter of fertile topsoil. So we have to really care. Next slide. Okay, Lake Chamo is one of the most important Rift Valley lake in Ethiopia, the second largest, and in productivity and in ecosystem service, it is one of the best. It plays a key role in biological diversity and also sustainability through a variety of ecosystem. I see there is a regulation service, support service like the photosynthesis and the carbon regulation, and also climate regulation, soil formation. All these deep forests, natural forests, are available both in the lowland and upland, but it is in a very small because of degradation we are most. And it also it gives a cultural, professional service like fishery and also wildlife, which is because it is located in the natural beauty with together with Nachisar National Park. And it also gives one of the best things are most 4-star hotels are located in the cliff edge of the as you see the video from there. So they can have a give very nice view for the lake and for also for the groundwater forest. And the groundwater forest itself, it is giving a professional service. The entire city of Arba Minch is depending on the water resource from the groundwater. And these 4-star hotels, they charge you $10 in the view of to the lake or to the forest. So it is giving a lot of ecosystem service. Next slide, please. Okay, in the story of degradation. So see, the key problem here is human population coupled with poverty. So local community is going up. As the image you see, the video, the image that you see is, it used to be a forest, that land, now converted to agriculture. And then you see the real erosion is already created, moving the topsoil and including the fertilizer and also the nutrient. That is followed by the gully erosion. So in the gully erosion, the soil, not only suspended solid, but also the entire plant can be transported to the lake. So the video, please, you can see that in the farmers are that sometimes you see that the entire banana will be in the lake. So this is a huge sediment export, and it's not good at all for the lake. Next slide. Yeah, this image is very clear for everybody. So the river that's coming from the right side is from protected area coming from forest, where entire sediments are trapped there into the forest by the vegetation. In the left one, you see is coming from the agricultural area with less soil and water conservation. So those valuable resources are coming like this and finally into the lake. Next slide. So what the inter-university cooperation IUC funded by the VLERES program has been doing a research since 2017. So as you see, we have a very standard, Europe standard data collection system, automatic weather station, like automatic sampling data logger. So everything we collect the data is in very reliable and then free of bias. And also we have experiments doing in the highland, as you see there in the forest experiment, apple experiment then. And finally, all these have been done by drone survey to detect change analysis. Next slide, please. So based on this research, so we have a knowledge-based intervention in a very small scale. So so any donors or the others can take this an assignment and to scale up process. So now I will give the floor for my colleague, Dr. Seyoum.
Thank you, Dr. Fassil, and I'm grateful for this amazing opportunity. It is also a great pleasure and an honor for us to participate in this community talk. As Dr. Fassil has already described, erosion and land degradation is very serious problems in our study area. So all our intervention is focusing on tackling this particular problem. Next slide, Ronald. So this interventions activity was carried out with full and effective participations of local stakeholders, which include smallholder farmers, foresters, agricultural extension workers, and also natural resource management officers. We also try to incorporate the indigenous knowledge from the local society. Next slide. So by using this indigenous knowledge and scientific finding, we develop this intervention activity based on the recommendation of the smallholder farmers. We established nursery and demonstration sites. So these sites helps a lot to multiply those agroforestry tree as well as indigenous and exotic trees dealing for afforestation and reforestation practice. At the same time, this demonstration site also serves as a training and knowledge sharing centers. So all those materials that we have in our nursery site used to increase the number of woodlots in the village so that we can reduce local people pressure on the remaining natural forest. We also try to strengthen the buffer zone of the natural forest, and we also reintroduce rare and threatened species in the forest gaps, so that we just not only conserving the remaining natural forest, we also reboosting its species diversity. Beside all this restoration and agroforestry practice, we also introduce biophysical soil and water conservation practices in the erosion hotspot area. So in the next slide, we will see the practical activity of all these interventions with some pictures. So this is one of our nursery sites, which dedicated to multiply those exotic and indigenous tree seedlings from these nursery sites. So we use these tree seedlings for reforestation and afforestation practices. Next slide. Next slide. So this nursery site perform dual functions. We show the availability of high quality of agroforestry plant materials for smallholder farmers. This is our primary objective from this nursery sites. But this nursery site also serves as a demonstrations and knowledge sharing area. So in this particular nursery site, not only multiplying these planting materials, we also conduct an experiments and different other activities related with intercropping of indigenous trees and indigenous vegetables, cereal crops, root tubers, together with these apple fruit trees. Next slide. So on this particular part, we try to demonstrate how to integrate those indigenous vegetables and other cereal crops also with apple fruit trees. So the farmers can use these vegetables as a short-term benefit, and they also use the apple fruit tree for long-term benefits. Next slide. So we also conduct, as I said before, we conduct an experiment to measure the performance of 6 different landrace of apple fruit tree with and without agricultural inputs. Hence, the experiment helped us to select the best apple fruit landrace and the management practices. So the researchers sharing this particular finding with the school community, particularly for the school teachers. The school teachers also are responsible to share this particular knowledge for their students, and finally these students disseminate this particular knowledge for the local community. By the way, this nursery site established intentionally in the school compound. So we create a novel knowledge sharing platforms from the school community to the local peoples. Next slide. So on the next slide, we will look at some practical examples of agroforestry. So in this particular farmland, the farmers combining the pioneer grass, sugarcane with coffee and maize. You can easily observe the spatial and temporal arrangements of different crops. So the perennial grass can grow to up to 6 meters depending on the landrace types. So it provides sufficient shades for coffee. It also serves as a source of animal feeds. The leaves and some parts of the stem used to feed the animals. The animals also providing manure for agricultural practice. So in this way, we create a perfect synergy between crop production and livestock systems. This in turn enhances the economic benefits of the smallholder farms. Besides, this perennial grass has a unique ability to reduce surface water runoffs. When this plant combine with a perennial source that is coffee, they stabilize the soil very well. So in this way, we tackle the erosion and land degradation problems. The maize is used for family consumptions, and the 2 perennial crops are used to diversifying the income source of the farmers. So this approach is not only improving the livelihoods of the farmers, but also enhancing the environmental stability as well as resilience capacities of the agro ecosystem in this particular climate change scenario. So the next farmers also combining, trees, shrubs, and vegetables. So it's also, you can see the perfect synergies of these 3 different life forms and complement each others and lead to improve both economic and environmental benefits. Next slide. So we also conduct conservations and restoration activity in the remaining natural forest. So this natural forest is the only natural forest that we have in the watersheds, which serves as a reference ecosystem for restoration work, as well as a seed sources for planting material. So we strengthen the buffer zone. We also reintroduce the rare and threatened species. We also try to reconstruct wood lots in the village levels. so that we minimize the local people pressure in this particular remaining natural forest. In the next slide, we will see the pictures how we conduct these three different activities in and around the natural forest. This one is a woodlot closer to the village, so in the communal lands. The objective is to reduce the local people pressure in this particular forest. As you know, in our country, all the rural peoples are depending on the forest for biofuel or construction materials. So the availability of these trees closer to the village helps a lot to reduce these pressures. Next slide. Next slide. So furthermore, we introduce those rare and threatened species in the forest gaps. This is the forest gaps that we use to reintroduce those threatened and rare species so that we can reboost the species diversities of the existing forest. We're also providing a home for those threatened and endangered species. Next slide. So this final slide also indicating the strengths of the buffer zones of the natural forest by just planting those fast-growing exotic trees. We strengthen the buffer zone to protect the pressures of the local peoples. So beside this restoration or reforestation and afforestation activity, we also introduce biophysical interventions of soil and water conservation practice. So we use both the physical barrier as well as biological remedies to tackle this erosion and land degradation problems. So the detailed parts of these activities will be presented by Dr. Fassil. Now, Dr. Fassil, the floor is for you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seyoum, for your presentation. So the slide is not yet coming. So this is like we will focus on the gully erosion protection. So as we are focusing on the highland where in the water divide where the streams are, the velocity is very low because there is where the sediment export started. So based on our research, most of the time the sediment hotspot area are high in the water divide, but these small are collecting and creating a big problem. So we focus. A good example is for them. So next slide, guys. Still, it is in the other slide. Yeah, there is some delay, but what we see, I know the slide. Yeah, here. So why we focus here? Because for poor farmers, this gully control is very difficult for them due to it is very expensive. Very expensive for them. So we are looking those locally available materials, how to do these things. So from bamboo and also from eucalyptus tree, it is possible to create eco-friendly that can serve also for the ecology and stopping the erosion at the same time, also giving a benefit for the farmers. But here the design can be scientific, but we didn't do it as it is in pure science. We included the community during the design, they are involved, and also during the follow-ups. That's why now this gully is more or less in a good condition. So the next slide, please. So the gully erosion, what you see in the A later, then this is before the implementation. So as you see, it is possible in the first rain, it is already trapped some sediment. But here, as you see, the land is completely bare. What we say when we say gully is coming from the followed by sheet erosion. So topsoil is not there, subsoil is not there. So it is including, so it is the source of sediment for the lake and also for the other. So it is very important to control, otherwise it will become widened and it takes a lot of sediment. So here it is a physical structure already done, and then with the physical structure, immediately the bamboo is also used to trap the water, and as you see in the B, the water will stay there, so it will recharge the groundwater and it will improve also the soil moisture. So slowly the grasses are coming back. We planted purposely trees for a physical barrier. At the same time, the root also create a good condition for the soil. And in E, that's the as you see in E, so the check dam is already filled with sediment. So soil almost the slope is stabilized. So vegetation is also grown in E. As in F, you see completely it is completely covered by vegetation. So next slide. What does this mean when it is completely covered? So soils are already coming, the carbon is already stored, organic matters also restored. And here is a very acidic soil here. So we planted also acacia decrus and other selected species by as recommended by PhD students. So what you see, the tree, the herb, and the grass will filter out the sediment and intercept also the rainfall. So splash erosion will be controlled, and the soil cover maintain the structure of the soil. And acidic soil also gradually will improve and reduce original gradient of the gully channel diminish, velocity of the water, so erosive power already controlled. So what you see here is also the acacia decrus plant, it is in 1 year and a half, it is growing more than 3 meters. So this is very, very good for gully erosion. So this is knowledge-based intervention, and the farmers are very happy because they get additional soil, and also they get fodder from there, from grasses and from cut and carry system. Next slide, please. So the next slide maybe, yeah, this is also, now we show you one small scale intervention in the highland. So now when we come to the lake, so the main problem is in the lake, there is no buffer zone. Buffer zone, you can imagine it is like a natural kidney for the lake. It will filter out something coming from the agriculture, whether it is toxicity, whether it is chemical or nutrient, it will be trapped and used by the plant before it is getting to the lake. Because the lake itself, well, as I said before, when the sediment is coming with all these things, it will become a pollution in the lake. So buffer zone is very, very important. So this is a joint collaboration by AMISU, KU Leuven, and BOSPLUS, and HRF from Ethiopia, and Arba Minch University administration, zonal people and local community are highly involved. And we have been trying buffer zone for the last 30 years, but we are not successful until we tried this system, because this is a joint certificate given by the local government for the university and the private association of a farmer, or in this case, fishery association. So we are legally, we have a legal power to control all these things, and then it works. So how it works, next slide. So the local community talk is already done thoroughly, and then the investor who owned first plowing to the buffer zone, they gave him alternative land. So and we have already signed MOU with even with the fishermen how to proceed, and that is works very nice. Next slide, please. So you see that this area used to be completely a farmland. So you see it is so in A later, that what you see is completely a farmland. So after this joint certificate, so the community itself, they are starting to plant. What we did is we planted those lost from the ecosystem, but now here also it is like an enclosure, no grazing, only cut and carry system. So in B is the activity planting, and then when the no grazing and the habitat is recovered, the birds are coming, and also they are laying egg at the same time. Now even rare birds are coming to this area. So this is a good example to show you before. This is a farmland, now it is coming. Can you play the video? Then now the birds are really enjoying the area, and at the same time the fishery association, they are very, very happy because the population of fish survey showed that it is increasing. And they are also at the same time here, they are using also cat and carry system for their livelihood. So this is a win-win situation. This is a best practice we had. So if the video is playing, I don't know, do you hear the videos? And I think the last slide is any question and answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. Fassil and Dr. Seyoum. And also thank you for including a lot of pictures, which makes it more concrete, especially for the people who don't know the region. We would like to open the floor and invite people to ask their questions directly to the speakers. There were no questions put in the chat, so yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, to put your camera on, to direct your question. And since it's always a bit challenging to find a first speaker, I have a small question myself. It regards actually the last part on the knowledge-based intervention. Like, can you maybe explain a little bit how you managed to involve the community? Was it very easy to involve the people you targeted from the beginning? Did you face challenges? And if so, how did you overcome these challenges?
Okay, thank you very much for your good question. Yeah, when we say it is knowledge-based intervention, first there should be a science to prove everything. So this is not only a simple science; it is a PhD student study which is peer-reviewed at Kailo and also here with the professors, and it's also based on publication. So this pure science by itself cannot really solve the problem, because the local community, there is a gap. So this gap has to be bridged by involving the local community and also by flexibility. So flexibility of science is very important when we include the indigenous knowledge of them. It is really very important. It helps. It is not against the science. Rather, science will supplement, add something for that. So, and when what we learn is, first farmers are a little bit resistant for things, but once you respect their knowledge, and it is a dramatic change. What we saw is when they really saw their idea is respected, they open their mind, also their hearts to help you. And then that's how this system is now becoming very effective, because we believe strongly the indigenous knowledge, even it is a feedback for us. Sometimes we are also, to be honest, we are learning from indigenous knowledge. So the challenge is there is always a challenge, but we are managed to do this. Thank you. Maybe Dr. you have something?
Yeah, I want to add one more thing. Is we established that nursery sites, so we also grow high quality agroforestry trees and shrubs there. That by itself also attracting the local farmers to participate in this restoration as well as agroforestry practice. So we use that demonstration site and nursery site as a stimulant to attract the local farmers in our demonstration and nursery sites. That also helps us a lot.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. I see that Roel Merks has a question, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Okay, thanks, Seyoum and Fassil, for your presentation. And as you know, when I was there, I was thoroughly impressed about what you have been achieving. And it was also very assuring to see that the VLIR-US model is working, in a sense that what is especially striking is that the first phase PhD students now are back in Arba Minch and take up their responsibilities and are extremely active and motivated in getting all this work done. But I have a question to Fassil with respect to the lake boundary protection. How do you think you will scale this one up? And is it not a risk that you protect one part of the lake boundary only? Would that not lead to even more intensive agricultural inputs to the parts that are not protected because the farmers went somewhere else maybe, or they are going to do the work even more intensive on the parts that are not protected. So unless you can protect everything, it will still be a problem, isn't it? Until you can scale it up to the entire lake boundary. What is your view on that?
Okay, thank you very much, Rul. Yeah, actually, it's very good question. So this is to convince the local government is the next challenge was that, but we have successfully also that done because this model can teach, give a lesson for the local community as well as for the local government and for national policy itself. So the government, when they give us this land, it is they want to learn. So they already see how it is working. And then the next, even last 2-3 months, we have already received additional 1.6 hectare by the government, because now they are highly convinced that the lake buffer zone is very important. And in principle, what we learn is no one is against the buffer zone, but the only thing is management. So the management is very crucial, and the farmers are also they get a lesson, because when the lake is coming back, they are losing their crops because their crops are not water resistant. So at this time, the key issue with the farmers is they will never lose their land. They control their land, but they can benefit their farm in another way by getting benefit for society. So the government is really convinced. So the previous idea is 200 meters from the lake. That is from trial and error system. It doesn't work because there is a settlement and there is. So with trial and error, now the government is convinced 50 meters from the lake is already now in the policy of the government. And I hope in in principle they told us 50 meters from the lake will be given for the buffer zone. So the only thing now is a follow-up. So now we are working with the park, with a private fisherman, now with the investor, with the additional, and the next is with the farmer. So we will learn from this, and then we will bring something for the scale up. We are using the government itself and another big donors like FW, GIZ, the others. They are highly interested to involve, and they are always acknowledging the cooperation. And in this time, I would like also to thank all of the North team. This is not only the South thing, so it is a perfect combination that makes everything. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Fassil.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. There is another question in the chat. First of all, good work, they say. How would you ensure sustainability of the intervention measures? Like, how will you make sure the measures will keep being applied or maybe even scaled up?
Yeah, here we are involving the local community itself first. So ownership, we are thinking very carefully about sustainability before we start the work, because ownership is very important. So they are involved from the beginning, from the design part and the follow-up. And now even the government is very involved. So we are not giving like a spoon feeding here. They are involved. They are doing the job themselves. We are giving, facilitating. So it is working. I hope it will continue to sustain as long as we or the farmers are getting benefit. So previous way of working, we didn't be successful because we are only focusing on the ecology, but rather though they didn't get any benefits, so gradually they will lose interest. But now they are also getting benefits. So what did I didn't mention it here? People are also getting livelihood. Now they have about more than the 12 goats here that by cattle and carry system they are selling, and the number of tourists are increasing there. So fishery is increasing, and this is like a motivation for them. Yeah.
So we also already agreed with the local community to just conserve this woodlot for the coming 20 years. They only use for fodders and tree branches, but the tree stays there for the coming 20 years for carbon sequestration and other environmental service like protecting erosion and landslides. So we already agreed this, so it continue for the coming 20 years. In the governmental land, it's already protected, not allowed the people to use that particular resource, so it's already secured there. The only problems in the communal land and in the private lands. So in the communal land, we have this agreement, so it will continue at least for the coming 20 years by providing this carbon sequestration, protecting this erosion and landslide. So it's already fine.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. I see there is someone else who would like to ask a question. Mr. Philippe Rabourou, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Philip Rabourou from Kenya, University of Eldoret. I just want to applaud the research and the intervention that has been done. And really, it's exciting. I raised my hands earlier, but I think part of my my question has been answered. It was the issue of sustainability. But allow me just to ask also the issue of this land ownership. It may be easier to deal with the government reserves, but what about these individual farms? I mean, is there some kind of incentive apart from them benefiting from the proceeds, like the pasture and etc., which comes from the regenerated vegetation? And is there any conflicts in terms of management? Where I come from is, for example, you may have the same area, different government agencies who are concerned with the wetland conservation, being responsible, others in charge of wildlife, others in charge of water issues, others in charge of maybe agricultural issues, so that there is conflict, the interagency conflict. Is there anything like that in the area? And if at all there is, how do we, how do you plan to make sure that there is no conflicts that arise as the project goes on, to make sure that what great work that has been done will not be interfered with? And can this be translated, the study that has been done and the achievements, can it be translated in different parts of Ethiopia or in different parts of Eastern Africa, or in any other area? Just I want to know more about that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is very good question. First, this ownership issue is like it's a new system that the government, we are pushing the government with a very consecutive meeting, fine tuning, and the other things here. the very important things is the buffer zone. Usually for the government itself is allocated in paper a buffer zone. But the problem is to put it in the work. So what they did is, instead of giving the land for the investor or for the farmer, the buffer zone will be given jointly to the institution who is going to protect or willing to protect the wetland. So here, Arba Minch University, Inter-University Cooperation, IUC, which is funded by Blair, is becoming a good example because there are a lot of knowledge which have been studied in this lake and connection to the highland. So what they said is like, yeah, there was a big problem first, but finally the agreement is like that any farmland investor having a buffer zone area, the government is willing to give them some alternative land further from the lake buffer. So that is a motivation or dedication from the government. And the idea when we work with the fishermen, with the farmers, the land itself will not be taken from them. Ownership is for them. They are involved in any way. And then the institution, for example, Blair or here, I mean the intercooperation or the Arba Minch University is not getting any benefit except protecting the lake. So that any benefit coming from that wetland protection will be directly or indirectly goes to the local community. So with this agreement, so there is a official letter given to both the investor or the farmer and also the institution, for example, for us. Even in the land certificate, it is written a joint map certificate. So this is very important for us. They want to learn from this, and we have already learned. It is working very good. And the next, who is going to practice this? The next following that farmers or investors are learning from this. They are even asking the support from the university. And another issue is there any conflict between another institution? Currently, there is no, luckily, fortunately, there is no conflict because they are also involved. They are also, these institutions are also in our stakeholder list. So before we are already thoroughly discussing this. Even they want to involve more, and then the change is so dramatic that the park itself and the other institutions are willing to participate. So this system of land ownership together with farmers and institutions, I think it will grow further and it will become a good lesson, not only for Ethiopia locally, it can be also a good lesson for the East Africa. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. And indeed, I think other regions within Ethiopia and outside can learn from this. Another question is from Yigrem. Can I give the floor to you so you can direct your questions to the speakers?
Yes, Yigram also asking what is the major drawback for the buffer zones? Was not successful in the last 13 years. So the major drawback of this buffer zone in the previous time was there is no other alternatives. Now we create at least one alternative in the communal land. So what we try here is just increasing availability of those resources closer to the village. So these woodlots, created in the communal land and governmental, non-governmental institutions like churches, schools, and market areas also. So we introduce those high-value timber trees for the local community. This helps a lot to decrease that pressure. It was not there in the previous times. I think it helps a lot. We also create an awareness among those communities, the impacts of deforestation, their farmlands, because they already lost the fertile soils because of this erratic and sudden rainfalls, because of the climate change. So all these activities help us a lot, at least to reduce the pressure on the existing forest.
Yeah, to add this, I think in case of the lake, in the last 30 years, we are not successful because the government has a policy at about 200 meters from the lake. So they want to enforce this by law and by force. And then when you go to the land there is a resettlement, and then there is some political issue, and the local community and the farmers, I assume that they are losing the land. So that's making a lot of problem, and it didn't work for the 200 meters from the lake, which is written in the policy. But what we have done is, what is reasonable? Even 1 meter buffer zone, as I said before, it is a natural kidney for the lake. Even 1 meter is important for the lake. So 50 meter is also a reasonable, that to not make any conflict between the government, between the local community, and also with the buffer zone. So with this, we are trying to convince, and there is no also, we made very clear that previously there is no clear way how they are getting the benefit, whether they will lose the land or who is ownership taking, and that is already solved by this joint collaboration. Thank you very much. If it is not answered, then we can add.
Okay, hello. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Can I give the floor to Anne Hazendonk? She raised her hand as well.
Yes, hello, Seyoum. Hello, Fassil. Thank you for a nice presentation. I have a question specifically for Seyoum, please. At the end of your presentation, you mentioned the planting of exotic trees. I was wondering what you mean with exotic trees. Is that opposed to indigenous trees? Because our government is actually having a policy which is completely different, because we now here, Belgium, Western Europe, we try to ban exotic plants or trees. So what do you mean with you say to introduce planting exotic trees?
Thank you, Anne. This is a really interesting questions. We call exotic tree like those trees we bring from other countries, like Eucalyptus globulus brings from Australia, so it's exotic for us. So the indigenous is one that we have in our natural forests. But this exotic trees has a potential to grow fast and multiply very fast, so it really compensates and also have a potential to provide those the growing demands of biofuel and construction material for the local peoples. That is why we prefer to plant those exotic trees in the buffer zones to satisfy that demands, and also protecting our remaining small patches of natural forest.
Yes, I understand, but then maybe in the long term, this might create then an additional or another problem, which we are facing here in some areas, because exotic trees, they take over from indigenous plants or trees.
Yeah, you are right. If they have an invasion natures, it may take over all the landscapes, but if you manage those species very well, it helps a lot to protect your own species. For example, in the case of eucalyptus, without this particular species, we cannot, provide these biofuel construction materials for the local peoples, because our indigenous trees are quite sluggish to grow and to be matured and to provide that particular provision services. so it helps a lot. What matters here is how to manage that particular species, how to control its dispersion mechanism. So it's more or less fine if we focus on the provision service of this particular species.
Yeah, I think to add here, when we say exotic, there are nice species, even if coming from there, the name is exotic. But well, your question is very important, yeah, because if it is invasive, if it's exotic and it is invasive, and then that is the problem. So that trees, we are not, for example, like area and in the park and the prosophies and this, we cannot grow because they are really invasive. But there are another, for example, Acacia decrus is like very important. It is we call it green manure, and it's good for the soil, for acidic soil. It grows very fast. So in this case, it is controlled. And exotic species, when they are growing, also controlled with the indigenous, they cannot be invasive if there is some control. That's already included. And then recommendation from the promoter from the north also, they are involved on this selection criteria.
Yeah. One small minor final question maybe. Also the apple trees are, I presume, exotic in your region. How are you planning to train people to maintain or to cultivate these apple trees?
Yeah, it's exotic, but there are peoples in the other area that have more than 14 years experience on cultivating and growing this particular fruit trees. So we use their experience. We also have a plan to share experience from the north with short-term visits. So we can share knowledge and we can improve our intervention activities through knowledge gaining and experience sharing.
Okay, thank you.
And then here in the apple is in the missionary, those coming in the Chencha area. So it is more than now 20 years. I think they have a very good experience. And now apple is the most expensive fruit now in Arba Minch, and also they are exporting also to Addis. So I'm very glad last time also Ruler also saw that the apples are responding very, very fast. Even they are growing very fast compared to Chencha area. And if we are successful, and I think the farmers will get a lot of benefit, and it's good for the project also. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Perfect timing, because I think we covered all the questions. And it's also 12 o'clock sharp. So I'm afraid we have to close off. But before doing so, I would like to thank the audience for attending this community talk. Thank you so much for your attention and also participation. We believe it's very useful to share experiences and insights, so thank you for that. And of course, also special thanks to Dr. Fassil, Dr. Seyoum, and Roland for this insightful presentation and discussion. Many people actually said it in the chat, but allow me to repeat it. Congratulations with the accomplishments made and the progress made within this project. It's quite impressive and inspirational. So good continuation with your project and with the IUC as a whole. And of course, I would like also to already welcome you for the next community talk that will take place on Wednesday, May 29th. This will cover a project on fostering sustainable shark fisheries in Tanzania through multi-stakeholder partnerships. So that promises to be very interesting as well. Stay tuned, check out our websites or social media platform to stay up to date. We wish you a lovely day and hope to see you all in May. Goodbye.